Hello and welcome to My Trans Best Friend, the cozy talk show where I, Lily, your trans best friend, like the music trance. Look, I like trance music. It goes like, but that's not the vibe here. I am your trans best friend, or one of them. And this is my talk show where I talk about silly things, good vibe things, food things. Generally try and keep it pretty light these days. It's a lot of fun. And today we're going to be talking about my top 5 restaurant experiences in San Francisco, which actually I'm very excited to talk about. If you're not aware, well, you know what? Before we even get into that, the one thing I want to tell you ahead of time is that this podcast is brought to you by Lily's Lovelies on Patreon. Patreon is a thing you can subscribe to support creators. So kind of like, you know, how back in the ancient Roman and Greek days, there were patrons of the arts, like rich people who supported Michelangelo to, you know, paint the Sistine Chapel or whatever. There was like basically like, here's money, give me art. And Patreon is the modern day version of that. So it's like not, you know, it can be anything as $5 a month, $5 a month. I mean, technically, you could give me a penny a month if you wanted to. I don't know if Patreon has a minimum. Anyways, Patreon is the place. Shout out to my supporters, my elite level sponsors, Dakota and Caitlin. They're keeping the lights on and the rent paid. And there's a lot of other Patreon supporters out there, I'm assuming listening as well. If you stick around to the end of the episode, I'm going to read your names out. So get excited for that. Patreon.com/LilyTino, LILLY or I can't talk today. Y'all, this is the energy. It's been a long day, a good day. It's been an incredible day. And actually, I'm going to talk a lot about it in a bit. But let me try that one more time. Patreon, Patreon. That's how you spell Patreon.com/LILLYTINO. Okay, let's move on. Y'all, if you may or may not, I'm assuming if you're listening to this, well, you know what? I don't want to assume. Maybe you've never seen my live streams before on TikTok. Maybe you just like these podcasts. And if that's the case, cool. I'm glad that you like this. Certainly the audio quality is better. I wish I could bring this nice microphone. I look lovingly at this incredible microphone I have at my desk out and about. But I've been going out to restaurants a lot. And it's great. I mean, I live in San Francisco, and San Francisco is, in my opinion, one of, if not the best food city in the world. Of course, you're going to be looking at New York City. That's an incredible food city. I mean, there's a lot of great food cities out there, but SF is definitely in contention for the best, like the number one. And I've been going around, obviously it's going to take a while before I can go to every restaurant in San Francisco, but I figured I would rank my favorite restaurants so far, and not just like the food, but the experience overall. So I have a top 5 list. I have an honorable mention, so technically it's going to be 6. So I figure we could just go down the line, starting at the honorable mention up to number 1. And if you like what the vibe is of these restaurants, know that most days of the week I'm out there streaming these. So this is kind of just like a retrospective, so I can gather my thoughts, and I don't know, maybe my opinions will be slightly different. I don't know. But anyways, let's start at an honorable mention. This one was 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point. It is a restaurant that I visited with Nugget, my dog, who, of course, you know, I love dearly. He is a good boy. At the time, he was a little bit under the weather, and this will come into play later. There is a bit of a grossness to this story, and you might already know what I'm talking about. But so we went to a Peruvian restaurant called La Mar, LAMAR. I believe Mar is, like ocean or something. Is that it? La Mer, yeah, because in French, La Mer is ocean. So La Mar must be the ocean. La Mar is how to describe this. I mean, you know, if you don't know what Peruvian food is, it is heavy emphasis on fish, fresh fish, like not cured. What's the word? Fermented? No, marinated. They put it in lime juice. Cure it? What is? I don't know. There's a word for it, but basically like ceviche, right? There's a lot of ceviche where they take fresh fish and put it in lime juice and like let it soak there, and it kind of cooks it, sort of. It's safe to eat, and you know, there's, you know, you might think Peruvian is close to Mexican. It's kind of got like touches of Mexican, but also not really. Like, there's one of the classic dishes, and one of the things I got was lomo saltado, which is kind of like, if you can imagine kind of like a lo mein almost. Like there's noodles, there's big hunks of beef, usually tomatoes, very like classic oyster sauce, which is basically what they use in lo mein. But there's a French fry. There's also like, instead of, no wait, is it noodles? I guess it's not noodles. It's French fries instead of noodles, right? Anyway, so let me back up a little bit. Lamar. We stroll into this place right when it opens. It is pretty much empty, the entire restaurant, and we get taken out. Like, it is a bougie restaurant. Oh, it is bougie. And let's see. So I'm pretty sure I had Nugget in the sling. Yeah, he was in his sling, and I'm trying to think. This meal ended up probably being close to $100. It was really good. And we were sitting out by the ocean, or I guess the bay. San Francisco is like right on the water. We're like looking out onto the bay. There's boats. You can smell like the sea air. It's kind of salty and slightly fishy, but in a good way. And our waiter was just so nice. And I have Nugget with me in my lap. They bring out these chips that are pretty good. But I remember ordering lomo saltado, which is the French fry oyster sauce thing. And it's just like, it almost seems out of place for this restaurant, because I'm trying to think, like, it seems like something you would get at 2 a.m. in like a, it's kind of like drunk food. And look, you know me, I'm sober, but it's like, it's such a greasy and kind of like so simple, greasy. The ingredients themselves are not necessarily like complicated. It's not very complicated to make. You take French fries, you smother them in sauce, you cook up some tomatoes and put them in there, and then beef on top, right? But the ingredients themselves, I think you pay a lot of attention to each one because it is so simple. And the beef specifically, you could do cheap beef, but that's not what this was. This was like top grade beef, and they didn't skimp on it. Like, it was like big chunks of like really good, well cooked, tender and juicy meat on top. It was great. Now, the gross part of this story, and it's not like that bad. It was gross, but it's not like sad or anything. There's all good vibes on this episode. But so, okay. So Nugget at a certain point, right around the time, I think, I also had ceviche for an appetizer, which was really good. Don't get me wrong. It was basically like fresh fish marinated. It was very good. But I think it was right when the lomo saltado arrived, I had a fork on the table and it got knocked over. No. Actually, let me back it up. I'm trying to remember this story from a few weeks ago. Okay, Nugget was in my lap. He starts vomiting. Okay, we're at a very fancy restaurant. We're on stream, so this is all happening on stream. He vomits. I like put him down on the ground. I pull the only means I have of keeping his vomit, not to make sure the vomit doesn't go on the floor of this fancy restaurant, right? Like, that's the worst case scenario here. So I take a plate. I had like a spare plate, and I like put it where he's throwing up. It all goes on the plate, because at least in this case, it's more manageable than on the floor. God bless our waiter. Comes over relatively quickly and says, "Here, let me take the plate." Like, that's how nice this restaurant was. They were not like, "Oh God, what the heck? Like, get out of here with your dog." This guy was wearing like really nice waiters, white shirt, nice pants. Like this was, for reference, on Google Maps, this was easily a 3 money star restaurant. That's the fanciness level. You can even look it up. Lamar. It's on Pier 2 or something. He takes the plate. Nugget's okay. He gets back on my lap. I'm petting him. It's fine. A few minutes go by. Can you see where this is going? The Lomo Saltado arrives. And again, a few minutes has gone by. I'm arranging the stuff on my table. Like, okay, Lomo Saltado here, move my drink over here, and one of the forks knocks off the table. I knock one of the forks off the table on accident. Clang, drops onto the floor. No problem. Pick it up off the floor. Now, I set it back down. I rearrange a few more things, and then it's time to eat, right? It is time to eat the food with the fork. So I take the fork, I pick it up, I look at it, and wouldn't you know, there was some brown stuff on the fork. And I was not thinking, because I didn't put it together that Nugget had just vomited onto a plate that some of it might not have made the plate, because it didn't. And that whatever was on the fork must have been debris from my appetizer and not the vomit on the floor. So I take the fork on stream, put it into my mouth, and just kind of like clean it off with my tongue, and immediately knew what had happened, because the taste of just my dog's vomit immediately hits me, and no. And, I'll spare you the details of exactly how it tasted. I'll say really bad. But the funniest part about it was that when the fork hit the ground, this is a fancy place. One of the, like, I don't know if you call them busboys, if that's the thing. The guy who, like, helps with plates and stuff, he heard it. And it's his job, and he's good at his job. When you hear a fork hit the ground, you show up with a new fork. Easy. So, the time that the fork clanged and by the time it went into my mouth was 10 seconds tops. So the guy, when it was going into my mouth, was 5 seconds away from putting the fork in front of me, and I didn't even see him coming. So he saw me put that fork into my mouth and make a face when it came out of my mouth. And as I was like, oh, he came and just like gently put the fork in front of me and was like, "You good, dude?" I don't know if he had made the connection that I had just eaten my dog's vomit on accident. I have no idea. But the look on his face suggested he probably put that together. And I just kind of gave him a nod, like a thank you for the fork, and he left. It took a second to de-vomit my tongue. We can move on from this subject. But once I did, I ordered a nice dessert, which was actually the highlight of the meal, is the dulce de leche at Lamar. This dulce de leche, which is essentially like a white cake soaked in cream with whipped cream and strawberries, was so good. Like, I would go back to this place just for the dulce de leche. The Lomo Saltado was really good, but this is an expensive restaurant. It was like $30 or $40 for that entree, and that's what every entree costs. And it was filling, but it wasn't like $40 filling. And as great as the beef was, I'm not made of money, and it wasn't like so mind blowing that I want to go back all the time for it. But the dulce de leche was. It was that mind blowing, and I would go back just for that. It was incredible. And I almost forgot about what happened with Nugget as I was eating it. It was so good. All right, that was Lamar. You know what? Should I go through and rank these? I think that makes sense. So we'll say out of 10. The service was a 10 out of 10. The food was a 7 out of 10. It was really good, especially if you like Peruvian food. But like it wasn't mind blowing. It was just really good. Also very expensive. Very expensive. Okay, that was the honorable mention. Let's talk about a number 5 experience. You know, I feel like Lamar and this upcoming one are kind of on the same level. We'll stick with this as number 5, but there's reasons that this would be number 5. So this was, again, like 3 or so weeks ago. It's interesting. It's really interesting going through and like remembering these, because it's funny, like the details you do remember about a restaurant and the details you don't, right? Like, of course, what I was going to remember about Lamar was the fork, but it's also the dulce de leche, right? I forgot about the ceviche. Interesting. Okay. So this was, I think, one of the first times that Nugget and I were going out in his stroller. And we were out and about looking for a place to eat dinner in the Ferry Building, which is very close to where Lamar is, the place from the last restaurant, like spitting distance almost. It's like right across the street, basically. We were walking around looking for a place to eat. I think I had already eaten that day, so I wasn't super hungry, but it was, if I remember correctly, kind of gloomy out. Maybe it was raining. So the vibe I was looking for was cozy. And so we're going through, and I remember like, oh yeah, there's like a dim sum tea place in the Ferry Building. Like, let's go check that. I've always walked by it. I've always wanted to go, but I've never had a chance. And it's kind of like a chill day. It probably won't be crowded. And it wasn't. And they were very nice to let Nugget in his stroller. Of course, how can you not love Nugget? He's so cute. So we go into this place and sit there, and it's an immediate plus for any restaurant if they are willing to give you their Wi-Fi password. That is such a huge... But look, in 2023, everywhere has Wi-Fi. You're telling me that as a restaurant, you don't have Wi-Fi? No. You don't have public Wi-Fi, right? And that's fine. That's fine. But this place did not have public Wi-Fi. But when I asked for it, and I wasn't pushy at all. I was like, hey, do you have Wi-Fi? And they're like, one sec, let me check. And they came back and they had the password, right? So they went above and beyond just moment one to get me the Wi-Fi I needed to stream in the first place, right? So that set the tone of, okay, these people are trying to make this a great experience for me. Because honestly, that's what dining out is about, is joy and good vibes. And, if I was working at a restaurant, it'd be one thing if it was super busy and I had a million things to do. Like if just one random person wanted the Wi-Fi password, maybe I can, maybe I can't. But it was a chill day, and they were happy to get me that. So, I don't know. I'm droning on about the Wi-Fi, but I don't know. It made a big difference to me. So we got the Wi-Fi. We're sitting down. Nugget is there. He's comfortable. And I take a look around about this place. It was, for being in a place like the Ferry Building, and if you don't know what the Ferry Building is, you can Google it, but it's basically just, technically it is a terminal that you can get your tickets to get in boats to go around the bay. But in reality, its primary purpose is kind of like a fancy upscale restaurant / boutique retail strip. For example, there is a fancy burger place. There is a place where you can buy caviar. There is a place you can buy fancy olive oil. There is a shop where you can buy mushrooms, just like the plain old kind, not the magic kind. Although there is a place you can actually... Anyways, there's boutique fashion. There's a honey place. There's a dim sum tea place, which is where we were at. There's Epicurean traders where you can get fancy crackers and hot sauces and things like that. And we're at the tea place, right? So we sit down, and I've always kind of walked by this place on Saturdays during the farmers market. They'll sell like jelly donuts on kind of like on the outside of their restaurant, just to kind of, I don't know, boost their profits for that day, I guess. But I've always thought of it as a dim sum place and not much of a tea place, because it looks more like a dim sum place. It's very cozy, it's actually quite quiet, and the lighting is very cozy for such a highly trafficked area. Like, it kind of feels like you're separate from the ferry building, even though it's open air. There's no like separator. And what you see when you take a moment to pay attention is there's tea everywhere. It's like clearly a tea and dim sum place as opposed to a dim sum and tea place, if that makes sense. The emphasis is on the tea. They bring you a huge menu full of nothing but tea. And you can go through and flip through and just look at all these teas. And they have descriptions for all of them. And the way it works is you can order a tea tasting. So you can either pay a certain amount to get like a couple of different pots of teas, or you can get one pot of tea. And I didn't need like 3 pots of teas to myself, so I ordered one. But let it be known that I had an extended conversation on stream with the waiter, who was very nice about the teas and which one I should select. This person was clearly the tea expert. She was like the tea tender of this place, because I like was asking someone, he was like, no, let me get the main tea person to like come and talk to you. And she like came over, she took her time with me. She actually brought different tins of tea that I was considering and like had me smell the ones that I was more interested in. And we weighed back and forth, like, I like this one, I like that one. Like, which one would you prefer? Oh, I prefer that one. Oh, okay, we can try that. And I think I eventually went with a milky oolong, which turned out to be the correct choice. And the cool thing about this is like, she prepared my tea and gave me a tutorial where, you know, she came over, there was a teapot with all of these like tea leaves in it that were dried up and like kind of in these like little tightly wound things. And she said, okay, what you're going to do is, and I'll show you the first time, is you're going to you're going to pour the water into the thing. You're going to let it sit for 30 seconds and then like hold this plate on and like tip it over. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically it was this interesting process of pouring and then steeping and then tipping it in a weird way to get it into your cup, so that you never got tea that was over steeped. And it was just it was like, is this excessive? Probably, but it's fun. It was fun to do. Like, could I have done with just a big teapot and just put all the water in there at once and poured out cups as I wanted them? Sure. Would I have known the difference? Maybe. But I don't know. It was just so cool and it felt so authentic. And the time she took to like show me how to pour the tea, and you know, it just felt special. I felt special. And even though, and then the afterthought is like, what are you going to get with the tea, right? So I got a tea tasting platter, or tea snacks. That's what they call it. So it was 3 things. Very plain and simple, but honestly pretty effective. Almonds, just like plain roasted almonds, salted. Pepitos, which is, I believe, pumpkin seeds. They're green and like roasted and salted. And then these lavender cookies. And I'm remembering this off the top of my head here. Pretty sure those were the 3. And the lavender cookies were homemade. They were kind of like shortbread cookies, but with a bunch of lavender in them, but not too much. It was actually really good. Those were kind of the standout. So, you know, you'd pour a little tea, have a sip, maybe have a couple almonds, crunch, 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 then maybe have like a bite of the lavender cookie, maybe finish that cup of tea, pour a little bit more. I also had barbecue pork buns, and those were excellent as well. So even though the food itself was like roasted almonds and a barbecue pork bun, which was, look, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, you gotta try these barbecue pork buns. They were fine. But the ambiance and like they gave me the Wi-Fi password, and they took their time with me. It's like, and I want to be clear, I didn't ask them to treat me any differently. Like, I wasn't like, hey, I'm a food critic, or like I'm a streamer, like, can you please make I didn't say any of that. I just said, hi, can I have a table for me and my dog? And they treated me like that, just like they would treat anyone else. So I don't know, it's just really pleasant. It's called the Imperial Tea Court in the Ferry Building. They're very nice. I recommend. I looked them up the other day, and on Google Maps, or no, Apple Maps, they only have 3.5 stars. If you're in San Francisco, you should disregard that. They're worth a visit. I think especially if it's a slow day, and you can just take your time, and like you're looking for cozy vibes. Like if you're in San Francisco on a rainy day, and you just want to hang out and like have a cool experience, go there. Okay, number 4. God, we're really getting into it here. This also pretty recent. This was even more recent. This was maybe 2 weeks ago. This was a nuggetless dining experience, because I remember that on that day, Nugget was resting. He was under the weather. So this was a Just Lily solo trip. And if you've ever watched my streams, specifically one of my food streams, you might know about my signature dish, one that I will order more often than not, which is the French Caesar. And that consists of a Caesar salad, French fries together. Okay, it is an incredible combination, and it all kind of goes back to the Cheesecake Factory, because for better or for worse, the Cheesecake Factory has one of the best Caesar salads I've ever had. It's really sad, because I don't know if I want to go back there for obvious reasons, but I'm searching for the next best thing, or maybe, God willing, a better version of it. So what I do is I go to the restaurant, I order a chicken Caesar salad, and then I also order fries, and I just put the fries on top of the Caesar salad. They act as croutons 2.0, if that's helpful. Now, I'll tell you right now that the actual chicken Caesar salad was like not the point of this meal. Like this is not the reason it's number 4. It was good. But I'll tell you right now that the thing I remember about this meal is everything but the chicken Caesar salad with French fries. It was good. I sat outside for this meal. It was a little bit chilly out, but it was warm enough. And if I remember correctly, I had a blanket. Did I have a blanket for this meal? I might have had a blanket. I don't know. But it was quiet. And your girl loves a quiet dining experience. I cannot tell you how hard it is to walk into a loud, not just like people loud is one thing, but music loud. If you are blasting, I can't tell you how many times, even on stream, I have left a restaurant because it was too loud. I have misophonia. I get overstimulated from loud noises. So if you are bumping AC/DC in your North Beach Little Italy restaurant right across from the that big park in the middle of it, the outdoor seating place, you know who you are. And I'm the only one sitting on the patio, and you can't turn down the AC/DC for me or turn it off even. Like, I'm sorry. I can't. I just can't. But it was quiet out on this patio. There's no music playing. The waiter was really nice. She wasn't like trying to stick around and talk, which is fine. Look, I love a good conversation, as you'll see from later on in these rankings. 2 big things I remember from this meal that were excellent. Number 1, the bread. Ugh. Y'all, this bread. Oh, this bread. So I might be conflating the bread here. I forget if it was like more of a roll or more of like a sourdough thing. The bread itself was excellent. I forget exactly what the type was, but what I can tell you is that the butter, they bring you out this like whipped butter, and it's so good. Let me tell you something. There is nothing worse. Well, actually, there's a lot of things worth. There's a lot of things worth. There's it's not a good feeling to sit down at a restaurant and receive a basket of bread that you know is delicious and know that the butter you've received just came out of the fridge. Because butter that just came out of the fridge is not meant for spreading. You got to play with your butter. Like, look, before you spread, you got to play with it a little bit, or you got to let it warm up. That's the better way to say it. You got to let the butter warm up. At least bring me room temperature butter, or not like we've all been there. You take your knife, you cut off like a little hunk of it, and you try and spread it on bread. And what does the bread do? You tear it up, and then you get like a cold piece of butter that kind of has bread bits on it, and your piece of bread has been mangled by this butter. No one likes that. And then you try and chew it, and it's like, okay, this bite is going to have the majority of the hunk of butter. No. Restaurants that recognize this are just head and shoulders above those who don't. I'm looking at you, Cheesecake Factory. They give you those pads of butter. The only reason it's not that big a deal is because the bread itself is so warm, so it melts anyways. But this place brings you whipped butter that has been prepared specifically not just to be cuttable, but so that it's so soft that it's like you don't even have to work. They've done the work for you. It's so good. And this place, they knew how to do that. And for that, I was grateful. Oh, by the way, this place is called Credo. Credo. Okay. We had the French Caesar. It was good. It was not as good as the Cheesecake Factory. I'm sorry. But something happened at the end of the meal. It was the dessert. Now, I looked at the dessert menu, and there was a couple that stood out to me. The first, and the waiter recommended a toffee pudding. And I said, okay, maybe. And she said, no, it's really, really good. I was like, And then the other one was a big, Captain Crunch sundae. And I was like, well, what's the difference? She said, well, the Captain Crunch sundae is like ice cream, and it's like really fun looking, and there's Captain Crunch in it. Or you can do the toffee pudding. Toffee pudding's better. And it was like, I get that the toffee pudding is better, but also Captain Crunch sundae. Right? It seems like such a weird thing to have at such a fancy restaurant. Captain Crunch sundae. I said I have to do that. And it came out, and it was great. It was really, really good. The ice cream was great, and there were bits of Captain Crunch in it. And it was just like such a fun little thing of, look, we can be a fancy restaurant, but still have fun. You know, like we can be fancy and fun at the same time. Just because we whip our butter ahead of time and do the work for you doesn't mean we can't put Captain Crunch in a sundae, right? And I liked that. Now, as we were eating this sundae, the stream and I decided, you know what? She recommended the toffee pudding so hard. Who are we to deny her opinion? Why not just get it too? So as I was like midway through my toffee pudding, the waiter came back and I said, hey, actually, you know what? Let's get a toffee pudding. She said, sure. She comes back a few minutes later. Hey, we just gave away our last toffee pudding. I'm so sorry. And of course, my heart broke a little bit. But you ever have a date where you go out and you get a little smooch, maybe even like second base, but the date just kind of ends there, and it's like, okay, maybe we can go a little farther next time. Bye. It's kind of like it leaves you wanting more. That's what this was. There was something there that I could not have, but I wanted it. And she said, you know what? You just come back next time. I was like, okay. There is more waiting for me at Credo. I have a reason to go back. How how many times do you get that at a restaurant? And it also is kind of cool that like they just didn't have any more. It's not like they can make infinite. They make it with quality. There you go. You can't just like invent toffee pudding in 10 minutes. Probably takes a lot of time. They only make a certain amount. Speaks to the quality. So, really good. Enjoyed. Number 4 on the list. Let's go to number 3. Oh, this one. This one, I think, really comes down to the service. I don't remember too much about this meal. Actually, no. I'm closing my eyes. I'm remembering it. I would say it was really good, but like it could have been better. But the server made the difference. This place is called Piccolo Forno. Piccolo, Piccolo, space, Forno, Forno. I don't know what that means in Italian, but this is a restaurant in Little Italy, aka North Beach in San Francisco. And the story it contextually is really important here. This was a Nugget day. We had Nugget with us in his stroller. And I had been bouncing around from restaurant to restaurant trying to find somewhere to eat. For some reason, the North Beachites or the North Beach restaurant owners were like not really feeling Nugget that day. And we went to one restaurant in particular, and call back to a few minutes ago, there was a patio where I was one of 2 customers on this patio, basically empty. It was a huge patio, like probably like 25, 30 tables. 2 of them were taken. I was one of them. And they were just blasting Hell's Bells, AC/DC. It was so loud. And I tried to put in my like little loops, my little earbuds, to try and block out the noise. If you know AC/DC, these boys are screamers. I mean, not like emo screamers, but it's screaming. Ah! So they sound like. And, you know, there's a time and place for AC/DC. I'm not like against AC/DC, but I certainly am not. When I think about a pleasant and expensive Italian dining experience, I don't think, God, I want to listen to 80s metal with that or whatever you call them. So I asked the guy, hey, can you turn that down a little bit? And he's like, yeah, sure. They turn it down like 1 or 2 notches, not even close. I can still, like, even with my loops in, I can hear the shrill screaming of AC/DC. And I'm like, there's absolutely no way I can eat here if there's AC/DC playing. It was like a classic rock playlist. And I asked the guy, I'm like, can you just turn it off? Like, patio's pretty empty. And, you know, and it wasn't like the other table here was AC/DC heads, rockers that were, you know, headbanging over there. They were just, I don't think they cared about the AC/DC either. And I said, oh, maybe you could just like put on some smooth jazz or anything that is not AC/DC. If you could just put that on or just turn it off. And the guy looks at me and he's like, I can't do that. I'm like, oh, why? And he said, well, the owner. And I said, okay, well, if you can't change the music or turn it way, way, way down or off, like, I just can't eat here. I'm sorry. And he said, okay, bye. All right, well, enjoy your music. And I feel kind of like a Karen, but I didn't make a big deal of it. I just stood up and left. So anyways, that is the context for this number 3 dining experience. I stood up. I was very hungry. I was a little bit ticked off. I wasn't on stream at this point. And I'm just walking around from restaurant to restaurant trying to find anywhere that was not too busy, not too loud, and also nugget friendly. Finally, we show up at a place called Piccolo Forno. And I go up, I stroll up with my stroller. I'm like, hey, could my dog come in? And it was too cold to sit outside. I think that's what it was. And he's like, the guy checks in, like, let me see. And they're like, all right, come in. The restaurant was not crowded. It was not loud. We sit down, and I just remember that like sigh of relief. And I popped open the stream, and it was just like immediately things got better. Immediately, and this happens every time I go on stream, or even if I am in a bad mood when I start streaming. And look, I'm only human. Sometimes I'm having a bad morning, and it's just like, oh God, I really want to be happy right now. I hope the stream doesn't notice. But the thing is that the streaming makes me happy. So it it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a good way. That like one of the really true examples of fake it until you make it. Like if I'm just like putting on a fake smile for the first 30 seconds of a stream, within that 30 seconds, the smile immediately turns real. Like it's interesting. Anyway, so I sit down and I remember the waiter's name actually, even though this was a couple weeks ago. Edgar was his name. Very nice, super like talkative in a good way. Didn't overstay his welcome at all. Saw I was streaming, was like come over and like say hi to the stream. I think he was like very curious about the whole streaming thing and interested to kind of like play a part in it. And he said, "Oh no, I won't come over to say hi to the stream until like we're done because I want to do a good job first before I come onto the stream." I was like, "Oh, okay, Edgar, sure." And I ordered a pizza that had like egg and asparagus on it. Look, piccolo forno, usually pretty good. This egg was like over hard. It was nearly hard boiled. They'd put it in for too long. I think the eggs on pizza need to be like over easy because the whole point is for the yolk to spill onto the rest of it. But look, Edgar was such a breath of fresh air and kindness and good vibes that I needed in that moment. That the egg being overcooked on the pizza didn't even matter because the rest of the pizza was actually really solid. And I'm trying to think if we got anything else. If we got an appetizer, maybe we got like risotto balls? Maybe? I'm not sure. Whatever it was, the meal was good. I'd actually been there once before, and that time was even better because I got a sausage mushroom pizza, and that was like very good. But, it's just shout out to Piccolo Forno for taking me in. I was down on my luck in that moment. I needed it. And they said, "Hey, we got you. And we got you." And I said, "Thanks. Thank you, Edgar and Piccolo Forno." Okay. Number 2. Oh boy. This is where we're getting into S tier territory. So, this was yesterday's restaurant, and number 1 is today's restaurant. All right. So really, I've had like and this is probably part of the reason I even wanted to do a ranking because it just keeps getting better. I don't know if I'm getting better at picking places or if it's just been a couple of, maybe I'm getting better at like the whole interaction. I don't know. But yesterday morning, and hold on. And by interaction, I mean like sitting, like knowing how to like ask for things and like setting up the stream and letting them know what it is that I need. Does that make sense of like, hey, would it be okay if you turn down the music? And just so you know I'm streaming, is that okay? Like asking that question is actually really important because sometimes I've walked into restaurants and just not said anything. And I don't think there's really anything wrong with that. But I think when they see it, it can be like, "Oh, what is that? A camera? Oh, they're okay, they're streaming. Cool." Right? It's nothing bad. In fact, it's probably a good thing for the restaurant for publicity. But if I preempt them just so that they can expect that I'm doing that, I feel like they're going to have a warmer reception to it overall. Right. So I've kind of hit my stride with that kind of thing in the past couple of restaurants. And yesterday it really kicked in. I went to what is now one of my favorite restaurants in San Francisco, and I would recommend it to anyone. It's called Sisterita. 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 It is on the border of Chinatown and the financial district. You can just Google it. Yo. This is a brunch place. It is an Asian fusion brunch place, but not in a way that's like weird. In a way like it's mostly just brunch foods with an Asian twist as opposed to Asian foods with a brunch twist, right? Like it's not like here's breakfast lo mein. It's like here's like eggs Benedict with, I don't know. I don't even know. There's like salmon eggs Benedict with curry sauce, curry hollandaise or something. You know what I'm saying? Like it's largely just a regular brunch place. As soon as you walk into this place, the vibes, immaculate. It's hard to so if you can kind of imagine a 19 when was the Titanic? Like, what if the Titanic was a brunch place and a soda shop at the same time? Like, it just felt very 20s. Was the Titanic in the 20s? I think it was in the I don't know. It kind of felt like that, of very homey, retro, but in like early 1900s kind of retro. There was, just like pictures on the wall that were, kind of old looking, but in a cute way. There's an actual bar, like a coffee, cocktail bar for those who drink. That just looked so cute. It was so cute. Like, Google this place and look at the pictures, because it's hard to explain. Look it up. But immediately, as soon as I walked in, and I was there pretty soon after they opened, so it was almost empty. I just like felt at home. And it was like, okay, I'm in the right place. I'm in the right place. I sit down with Nugget. They immediately love Nugget. They love Nugget. And over the course of the meal, they like reminded me how much they love Nugget and that dogs are always welcome, which was like incredible. We sit down. They sit me at like a nice bigger table. Actually, they originally were going to sit me at a smaller table, but of course I'm streaming. I need a little bit more room. They're like, yeah, take the bigger table. It's great. We sit down, get Nugget settled, and this menu, aside from it being huge, aside from it having, even though it's just like a front and a back, there was a lot of options. It was they had regular kind of like lunchy options, but they also had a lot of brunchy options. So there was eggs Benedict. There was like griddle, like or I don't think there were pancakes, but there's chicken and waffle. There was French toast. There was, just like regular eggs and toast and stuff. There was burgers, there was salads. Like, it was almost kind of like diner food, but way elevated. It was not just like, everything had a unique twist to it. There was nothing that was just eggs and toast, right? It was all really interesting menu items. I highly recommend you look at the menu. But the first thing that caught my eyes, is I looked at the drinks, because I was like, I need coffee or something caffeinated. And usually at a brunch place, especially an upscale brunch place, alcohol is a big part of it, right? Because people go to brunch to drink a lot of times. Obviously, I do not. They had a whole big part of they had a whole big part of the menu, a section of the menu that just said, I'm sober. That's what it said in big, like, fancy letters. I'm sober. And huge selection of like coffee drinks, juices, Thai tea, Thai coffee, like all these different things. And it was big. It was just as big almost as the alcohol section, if I remember, or at least that caught my eye before even the cocktail section did. And it was like, okay, this is a place that is inclusive in a way that I've never seen a restaurant like this be inclusive. Like, hey, we understand that drinking at brunch is a thing that most people show up for. But if that is not you, you're welcome here. And we want you to know that. And that just felt so good to read, of like, even if it wasn't there, I wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't be like, where's the I'm sober part of the menu? But it was there. And it's like, if you're drinking, great. There's plenty of custom cocktails for you. But if you're not, it was just like a little nod. Like, okay, another thing like this that I saw. Actually, today, I was at a coffee shop. And you know that little sign on like the toilets that says, please do not flush feminine products, right? Someone had scratched out the word feminine, right? So, please do not flush products, right? And it was like, I don't know if it was the people behind the counter, if it was someone else, it doesn't matter. It was like a little touch of like, oh, that's a little bit of inclusivity, right? Because trans men use those products, and I can imagine they probably hate that it's called feminine products, right? Just in the same way that I would hate, I don't even know, like if I had to use something called masculine products, I wouldn't want to use that, right? It was just like a little bit of gender inclusive language that really helped make my day a little bit brighter. And it was the same kind of idea for the I am sober part of the menu. Okay. So that just immediately I knew like I'm in the right place. And I did tell them like, hey, I'm streaming, just so you know. Like, I go around San Francisco now and, a bunch of people watch and it's really fun. And just so you know, and they're like, oh yeah, great. We sit down, I order chicken and waffles. I order spicy honey bacon. And what was the other thing? Oh, there was one other thing. I ordered like eggs to go with the chicken and waffles because I find that if I don't have eggs on my waffle, there's a problem. I know it's weird, but I like runny eggs on my waffles. Incredible. So the chicken and waffles come out. The bacon comes out. Oh, also I got a Thai iced tea. It was incredible. So rich, so creamy, just hit the spot. It was like also the first thing I had that day to drink, so it was incredible. The chicken and waffles come out. They were very good. They had like cinnamon sugar in the waffle pockets, which was just what a touch. What an incredible touch. It came with a real maple syrup. You didn't even have to order it. It's like usually it's like, oh, you want real maple syrup? Pay an extra $3 for like a little tiny bottle. Included real maple syrup. Now, we could get into it. Sometimes fake maple syrup is like more whatever. It was real maple syrup. I enjoyed it. So I got the eggs, I got the bacon. The bacon was, I would say for an $11 plate of bacon, I don't need it again, but it was pretty good. The chicken waffles, really good. The chicken itself was fried very well. It's house battered, house fried. Obviously the waffle was house made. Very good. But. I think somehow, you know what? One of the waiters came over at one point and waved hi to the stream, and maybe they saw how many people were watching, or maybe they just, because they were trying to push me in, instead of ordering chicken and waffles, to order the French toast. And I just didn't, I was like, I don't know if I want French toast. I'd much prefer chicken and waffles. I didn't know how good the French toast was. And my friends, this was the first instance of ever getting something free at a restaurant because of streaming. They brought me the French toast on the house. And actually it was funny the way it happened. One of the waiters who wasn't keyed in on the fact that this was a free French toast, and I wasn't keyed in, came over and he's like, French toast? And I was like, I didn't order it. I'm sorry. And he's like, oh, okay. And he walked away with it. And someone was like, no, that's for her on the house. And I kind of saw the interaction from afar. I was like, oh, am I getting this French toast for free? And they brought it back and I was like, oh my God, thank you. I didn't ask for it. And Google the French toast from this place. I'm sure on like Yelp or something, there is a picture of it. It was so good. I would venture to say that was top 5 plates I've ever had in San Francisco. Ever. And this, I'm talking about, this is a list of top 5 stream meals. I've had a bunch of other bites or plates in San Francisco that are as good, if not better. This might have been one of the top 5 things I've ever put into my mouth. And I've slept with trans girls. And cis girls. I don't discriminate. Sorry, this isn't Lily's Lusties. That's at the $10 Patreon level. Okay. Back on track, Lily. Back on track. This French toast was so good. It was like less of a loaf of bread and more of just like a cake drenched in, I don't even know. It was just like fried and drenched. And they had this like sweet cream that you poured on top. There was a caramelized banana on top, candied walnuts, pecans, syrup. It was immaculate. 10 out of 10. Even the number 1 experience that I had, no bite there tops this bite. Not one. There's a reason number 1 is number 1, but we'll get there. So it's just so good. And it was just really, really nice. It was really, really nice. So highly recommend Sister Rita. If you can go, if you're in San Francisco and you have an open brunch slot, go. Okay. And tell them I sent you. Finally. One of the main reasons I wanted to do this top 5 list in the first place is because of the number 1. And that was today's meal. The one I had not 6 hours ago. This was, oh boy. So I was in Oakland this morning. Technically, I was in Alameda, getting his heartworm shot. But afterwards, I was like, you know what? Let's go to Oakland on the way back and get food there, and then go back to San Francisco because Oakland's on the way back. And we decided, actually, who was it? Sarah Grulich, Sarah, who's on the streams a lot, was like, you know what? You should go to pizza because I gave a couple choices. So Sarah, you chose this. It is because of Sarah that this happened. If you're listening, we went to a place called Square Pie Guys. This is a chain which we learned eventually has 3 locations, 1 in Oakland and 2 in San Francisco. Okay, they are known for Detroit-style pizza. What is Detroit-style pizza, you might ask? Good question, very valid. If you can imagine focaccia bread, which is kind of like, it's usually square, maybe like a 9x13 pan you might see it in, or even like a square pan, some like an 8x8. It's maybe an inch or 2 thick. It's very poofy. The top of it kind of has like craters in it usually. Oftentimes they'll put rosemary and like olive oil on top, but you can imagine focaccia bread without the rosemary and olive oil on top, right? Just that bread as the crust, right? As opposed to like a New York slice where it's thin, but it's not like a deep dish. A deep dish is way different. This is not a deep dish. It's just like thicker bread with stuff on top, okay? And usually with the Detroit style, the edges will have like crispy cheesies, little crispy cheesies. It's very good. It's a style of pizza I've only recently started to appreciate. The other place that does Detroit style is Capo's, but we'll talk about that another day. One of my neighborhood favorites. So we go to Square Pie Guys, and the food was great. I'm going to talk about the food. There's just so much stuff packed into this 2-hour meal. It was one of maybe the most eventful meals I've ever had. Delicious as well, but eventful just as much. So I realized the way that Square Pie Guys works is they have a system where you walk in and you can either order at the front and just like they'll give you a number and you bring it to your table, or you can, well, actually, I don't know if it's the number system. I don't know. Or maybe it doesn't matter. Or more likely, you can, I don't even know if it's likely. You can, there are 2 options. You can order at the front, or you can use a QR code, like all of the tables, and there's like a whole back picnic area that's mostly sectioned off. You can take your phone and scan the QR code, and it will take you to like a menu that you can purchase from. So like you never have to talk to a waiter if you don't want to. You just like scan the QR code, say I want boop, boop, boop. Yes, Apple Pay, zing, send it off, and the food arrives, right? It's like super easy. Now, one small problem for me is that as a streamer, it is impossible unless I have a second phone, which, you know, I'm not made of money. Unless I have a second phone, I can't go through the menu with the stream, which I think is an important part of streaming, right? Of like, okay, what should we get kind of conversation. I like that. So I was like, okay, well, if I can't order on my phone, that means I have to order up front, but that's also like hard to do if I'm all set up with my streaming stuff in the back patio. So I go into the front and I'm like, hey, so I'm a streamer, and actually I did say food critic because I guess that's kind of true at this point. And, you know, I stream this all on TikTok. I was wondering, like, if there's anything, like, what did I say? I basically asked for an exception. Like, I was very nice about it, but I was like, hey, like, it was 2 or 3 p.m. There was nothing happening. It was dead. This restaurant was dead. They were just chilling. I was like, hey, kind of like I have a menu, and like this girl behind the counter who we learned is named Summer was like, yeah, here's a menu. And she like peeled some menus off of the table and gave them to me. They were like taped down. Apparently she got in trouble for that later, as we learned. But she's like, yeah, you know what? Do you want me to like come out and take your order? And Summer's very cute. I'm like, yeah, that'd actually be great. And she's like, great. I'll see you in a few minutes. So we go out back. We set up the streaming setup. And Summer comes out a few minutes later, consults with us about the food. And of course, at this point, the stream is like, oh, Summer's cute. And I'm like, yeah, I know Summer's cute. And she gives us recommendations. We order through her. And we then have a new character come into the story, Alfred, who is the manager. So Summer's boss, as we would learn. Alfred came out, took my credit card, we did the purchase, and then went back in. And so the food eventually comes out. Summer brings it. And, this is deep into the meal. We're chatting, we're talking, we're having a nice time. The French fries. Now, Alfred was the first one to start bringing out free stuff. Again, I did not ask for any of it. Alfred brought out like 7 or 8 different free sauces for me to dip my fries in. Normally, the fries only come with ketchup. However, I was asking Alfred before I ordered, like, should I order the extra sauce? He's like, you know what? Let me just bring out some sauces to taste. I was like, okay. So we got, of course, ketchup. We got a whole bowl of fries, like a big amount of fries. I couldn't even finish. I forgot to put the pizza away. It's been a few hours. It's fine. I almost had the reflex to be like, okay, just, hey, person listening to the podcast, remind me to put the pizza in the fridge. Actually, that'd be funny. If you're listening to this, just feel free to send me an Instagram message, put the pizza in the fridge, and hopefully maybe I will have forgotten. Maybe you will get to me in time. I don't know. Okay, so, okay, he brings me ketchup, of course, garlic, mayonnaise, pretty good, regular ranch. Their ranch was lemon ranch, which was really weird. A very lemony ranch. Not a fan. Spicy lemon ranch, which was also pretty weird and just spicy. A green goddess sauce, which was like a creamy pesto sauce. It was okay, but a cilantro crema, which was very strong in the cilantro, but also very good. Kind of like a yogurty cilantro garlic thing. Pretty good. But then the belle of the ball, SPG sauce, which was a kind of like a garlicky, mayo-y, ketchup-y sort of thing. But it was better than those things. It was elevated. I couldn't quite put my finger on what made the sauce so special, but it was incredible. SPG sauce. So we're like dipping, we're going through, we're trying all the sauces. And our cute waitress, Summer, comes out and delivers the pizza. Now, it's at this point that I'm asking the stream, like, should I? Like, we're flirting, me and her, on stream. She's like talking to the stream, and like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Oh, stream thinks you're cute, like, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if I said that, but like the vibes were there, right? And, she leaves the pizza, and the chat is even like, oh, get her number. I'm like, I don't know. Our final ask, I'll ask, like, oh, should we do the number? Should we get her Instagram? Like, how do we want to approach this ask? And she comes back out, and she's like, hey, I was like making, we were like making an extra pizza. Do you want it? I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. We're like making an extra pizza. Do you want it? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, no problem. Free pizza. I was like, okay. So this girl is being really nice and giving me an extra pizza. And then she's like, oh, and by the way, what's your TikTok? And I'm like, oh yeah. Here it is. Here's my TikTok. And, she pulls out her phone, gets my TikTok, and then she's like, oh, yeah, well, I'm about to go on lunch. So, and I'm like, oh, do you want to like eat with me? And she's like, yeah, I'll eat with you. I'm like, okay, great. Well, see you in a few minutes. So she goes on break and sits with me and offers me some of her pizza. And we're just talking and chatting, and there was a bit like the stream was listening to this, although they did kind of get cut off because there was like a low battery warning or something. But we're flirting hard, okay? She's talking about like, well, we're just kind of like swapping basic info, like, oh, where do you live generally? And like, oh, you got roommates, cool. Yeah, I live in financial district. Oh, cool. And then it's like, oh, are you queer? I forget how it came up, but it was natural. And she's like, yeah, I'm pansexual. I'm like, oh, cool. Pansexual is code for I'm super into everyone, including trans. Well, I don't know about super, but it means I'm into everyone, including trans people. That's what pan means. Like any gender is irrelevant, right? It's just the person. Like what's the Schitt's Creek metaphor? It's like I'm not into the bottle, I'm into the wine inside, right? Like something like that. She has my TikTok, and I'm like, you know what? it'd be cool. Do you want to like hang out sometime? She's like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, oh, great, cool. I enjoyed hanging out. She's like, yeah, me too. And we're like going back, and she also like tells me that she got in trouble with her manager somehow because like she shouldn't have peeled the menu off the table. It was kind of dumb. Anyway, she might have, she was very cute. She's also 23, which is a little bit too young, right on the edge. But because I'm 30, she's 23. It's like, okay, well, there was a spark there, and it's fine. But okay, so she kind of leaves. She brings me this free pizza. Now, something so wild and unexpected happens after I conclude that interaction with Sumner. She stands up, goes back to work. I'm like, okay, I'm finishing up my meal. This, and I don't know. I know the term is unhoused, but I don't know. I guess I got to break the habit of saying homeless because I don't know. But an unhoused man who is probably on something kind of wanders in to the back patio area. Now, mind you, this is not a bad area. It's downtown Oakland. I'm not saying it's super safe, but it's a relatively like upscale street and area. This man just wanders in. I'm the only one on the patio at this point. I'm the only one. He kind of stumbles in and comes up to me, and he's like looking around. I think he understands that this is the right time to ask someone. I had so much food. I had like an extra free pizza. I had like leftover my pizza. I had leftover fries. I also got monkey bread, which is so good. You should get that if you're there. And he's like, hey, can I get some pizza? And it was like, look, yeah, of course. Why not? I have so much pizza. Like, why wouldn't I give this guy a slice? So I grab a napkin, I get a slice, and I hand it across the picnic table to him. He's like on the other side of this picnic table, and he's like, oh, thanks. And I like, he didn't want to take it. So I like put it down on a plate kind of on his side of the picnic table. And he's like, okay, cool. And he takes off his backpack, which is a like child's Minecraft backpack. And he's in his hand, he's holding what I would imagine is like a bottle of rosé, it seemed. Unzips his backpack, puts the bottle of rosé in. I'm assuming to free up his hand so that he can hold his pizza. But before he zips his Minecraft bag up, he pulls out a folded piece of paper, which I soon learned was a Playboy or Hustler centerfold pullout, like one of those big kind of things you kind of pull out of a magazine, and it's a buck ass naked woman, like full tits, full vagine, showing like spread eagle vagina right there. And he opens this thing, it looks signed, and shows it to me like, you like this? And he's just on the other side of the picnic table, this man. And I'm like, what? Oh, and there's a picture on my story of my reaction because people were like not sure what was happening on the stream. They just saw my reaction. And he takes this photo and he starts kissing it in front of me, like kind of like gentle, soft, loving kisses on this picture. And I'm just like wide-eyed, not like no one's, if I wasn't on stream right now, no one would ever believe this. I guess maybe they would, but okay, so he gives it some kisses. He folds it back up, puts it in his bag very gently. This is clearly a prized possession. Zips it up. And I would think he's like, okay, I don't know if it was like a quid pro quo of you gave me pizza, you get to see my girlfriend or like my like prized object or something. I don't know. I think he thought he was doing me a favor by showing me that. Like I got a little special treat from him in return. I mean, yeah. So, he like puts on his glasses and it takes him a while to walk away. Like he really took his time to get out of there. But I was just standing in shock or sitting in shock. And, you know, part of me is like, wow, that really could have gone much worse. Because at the end of the day, it's not like I haven't seen that stuff. I don't mind. It's fine. I mean, look, I love boobs as much as the next person. It was just a little weird in that context. But I think where I've landed on it is it was more funny. It was more funny than anything else. It was shockingly funny. So, anyways, yeah. Then eventually I left. I talked to Summer a little bit more before I went. And yeah, that was number one. I think that is number one because A, the food was incredible. I highly recommend it. Square Pie Guys is great. The fries were great. The pizza was great. I had the Big Von, which was like a white sauce, pepperoni, sausage, hot honey. It's like hot honey. That's a big thing here at that place. Like spicy honey on top. The monkey bread was great, but I also got a girl's number. She was really cute. And that whole thing with the picture was just like so memorable that how could this not be my most memorable experience, right? I don't know. Anyways, we're going long today, y'all. Okay. Well, those are my top 5 San Francisco meal experiences of 2023 so far. I would imagine I'd do another iteration of this eventually. Before we go, I am going to read some Patreon names. So let me go ahead and pull these up. Once again, thank you if you are subscribed at any level to my Patreon. I'm going to go ahead and read the $10 and above levels, just the name that you gave. So again, we salute our elite level sponsors. That is Dakota and Caitlin. They're supporting at the $75 level. Our angel level supporters, Reese, Dawn, Deb Abrams. Love you, Deb. Julia, Caitlin Joy, Catherine, Mira Berzofsky, my mom, Nina Contino, Sissy, Wendy, Garlic Breath, Maureen, Michelle Iverson, Maureen A, Michelle Iverson, Sylvia Rumsey, Amy, Amanda Hawkins, Ann Larson, Asher McLean, Ashley, Beautiful Cherry Blossoms, Brandon Calamares, Katie Hembry, C-Dub 1881, Chicago Love, Chrissy, Claudia, Colleen / Doxy Mom, Don Marie, Don Mize, Elizabeth, Elizaveta, Erica Goki, Foshizi, Faith, Gretchen, Benoit, Harper Evelyn, Jesse Smith, Jules07, Karina Avalos Monsalvo, Kat, Katrina, Kelly, Kelsey, Kashana, Liz, Mackenzie M, Maple, Mia Hoekstra, we're almost there, Mindy A, Natalia Palmatier, Rebecca Emmeline, Roger Clorse, Rosa Albert, Salem Santia, Tim Dabash, Tracy Miller Moda, Anna Marino, Emma Crispin, Jacqueline Polson, Alexis Under. That's when the $5 one starts. But thank you anyways. And I love you all. The fact that y'all are supporting me on Patreon is one of the few reasons I am able to still do what I do. So thank you. And if you are listening to this and you are not supporting me on Patreon, know that it is not to, as much as I would love to add gold into my gold swimming pool out in my backyard of my apartment, really the Patreon money goes to rent and groceries and like basic stuff like that, so that I can keep doing what I'm doing. Really just trying to make ends meet, because I love this work so goddamn much. It is like I was thinking the other day, could I ever go back to doing something else, anything else? And I thought, no, never, ever. This job is too freaking cool, and I love it. Doesn't even feel like a job. It's basically not, but it is, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? All right. I love y'all. Anything else? Yeah. If you write a 5-star review for this episode on Apple Podcasts, I will read it on air. If you tune into my TikTok streams, I do more restaurant stuff. LilyTino_. There's merch in my store. There's already some Nugget for President stuff up there. But I haven't done the full. It's kind of in a soft launch right now. Not all the stuff is up yet, but if you want to go just take a look and let me know what you think, you're welcome to. Yeah. And look, I love you. I love the fact that we are such a cool and fun community that supports each other, and you add value to this community. You add value to this world just by existing. I love you. Have a great rest of your day. Mwah.